Hey there, ladies and gents, it's Polly Deuces, and I'm doing a run through Temple of the Jade Serpent, which is the first dungeon and introductory dungeon, I guess, to Mists of Pandaria. It's the only one available that I know of, so I just decided to do a whole run through. So the trash is on fast forward. Hopefully it'll give you a little idea of what's between each boss, and yeah, it's pretty simple, really. There's not really any trash in this dungeon that can be skipped. All the trash that are here are trash that you actually have to kill and go through, which is pretty cool. You know, there's no longer, you know, useless trash mobs in the middle of nowhere that are ignored until the end of time. It's all straightforward and nice in that way. So, first boss coming up here is Wise Marie, and we're about to get there, so I'll stay quiet until we do. So the first boss of the Temple of the Jade Serpent is Wise Marie. It's a two-phase fight. First phase is an ad phase. There's going to be 4 ads that you're going to be going up against, and they're water elementals, just like the ads before the boss. And it works exactly the same way. When you kill the elemental, 3 little globs will come out. You kill the globs, and then the next elemental summoned. Rinse and repeat for 4 times, and then phase 2 begins. It's pretty simple. Phase 2 is you burn the boss down without getting killed. Easy. Now let's talk about the specifics, okay? So the water around the boss is polluted. If you stand in it, you take 5,000 damage per quarter of a second. So basically 20,000 damage a second. It just happens really fast. So if you're in it for even half a second, it's really easy to take damage. So you have to hop over the little waterways to avoid that. Additionally, he'll also cast, I believe it's called Hydrolance, and what happens is he chooses one of 3 directions to shoot it, and it's like a huge wave of water. It does like 20,000 damage on its way to its destination, and at the end it explodes and does like 30,000 damage. So you want to try to avoid that. It's a really simple fight. It can take a while because, well, at least in the beta, I mean, shaman, warlocks, and hunters are just doing outrageous damage right now, so it's kind of wacky, and tanking is really weird now, so it's kind of weird to work out. Anyway, so what else is there to work with? Oh yes, when the elementals die, they drop a pool of acid on the ground. You can't stand in that. So, as you can see, I'm taking them down by the fresh water, where you're allowed to stand here. And that way we have a lot of room to move around, and we don't have to worry about the boss's silly mechanics. So I suggest if you go on here to tank, bring the ads down here. It's not healing intensive. There's no debuffs to worry about. It's just worrying about accidentally falling into the water, or I don't know, aggro going stray. You know, it's not that difficult. DPS, you have fun. There's nothing to worry about on your part. Yeah, it's a very simple fight. And of course, when phase 2 comes along, that's when he shoots a beam, and he sort of does a whirlwind very, very slowly, and he just keeps whirlwinding constantly until he dies. That's phase 2. You know, it's simple. So basically, what you want to do is, you know, not get hit. Avoid the water, avoid the beam of water, and this guy is simple. And then once he dies, he'll purify the water. You're allowed to walk around after that, and it's, you know, bing bang boom, easiest boss ever. And that's why he's the first boss. The second boss has a little difference of opinion, because there's two different versions, and we'll get to that in just a moment. So that was actually a pretty easy boss, and the next boss isn't that difficult if you get the proper selection, because there's one of two bosses that you can face in the next event. It's called the library event in the journal, but it's just the next boss. So, of the trash pack, there's one mob that I don't like. It's called, I think, the Queen Songbird, and she puts the tank to sleep for like 4 seconds. That's really annoying. It's interruptible, but I miss it every time. I don't pay attention, and it's very annoying. So if you don't have a healer that's paying attention and the tank isn't paying attention, then for 4 seconds you're just going to be destroyed by the trash. So, but that's basically it. This is all the trash is easy. You know, there's very little room to complain. And there's a talking fish here. That's pretty funny, but yeah. I'll just let you enjoy the little speed run here until we get to the next boss. Okay, second boss on the docket is Lore Walker Stonestep, or in other words, the library event. And now this event has one of two possible bosses. At the moment in the beta, one boss is really unbelievably simple, the other boss is extremely difficult. It's weird. So this first one here that's being showcased is the Champion of the Five Suns. And what happens is that top sun there, it doesn't do anything, but the four other ones shoot fireballs at you, and what you have to do is target each one and destroy them. It doesn't take much to destroy them. That's not the tough part. I mean, this whole fight isn't tough, but that's not the main part of this fight. So once you kill each sun, or as you destroy each sun, what happens is it spawns a Shaw, and what happens is you have to, as the tank, you have to gather up the Shaw, tank them, while the DPS are killing the suns, and yeah. Once the DPS down the suns, then they focus down the Shaw. It's simple. There's fireballs going around. They only do like 10,000 damage. It's not super worrisome. Once you kill all four Shaw, what happens is 4 more Shaw spawn, and they actually go inside of Zhao Sunseeker, I believe that's his name, or Zhao Sunseeker, and he's the Pandaren there that's helping you out. And once they go into him, he becomes evil and attacks you. So you have to kill him, and that's the end of the fight. Now, the thing about this fight is just simple. Like, it's not healing intensive. There's no debuffs to worry about. You know, that crap on the ground, the purple crap on the ground, hurts you, but it's easy to stay out of that. As you can see here, the 4 spawn, they run into the Pandaren, and then you have to kill him, and that's it. He doesn't do anything super special. He shoots hellfire arrows at random party members, but it doesn't apply a debuff or anything. It does a moderate amount of damage, and that's all you have to worry about. You just work with it, you know. None of my healers so far have ever suffered with mana issues or even healing us, keeping us full with this specific fight. There's fire tornadoes around the room, but none of us ever walked into it. We don't even know if that hurts you or not. So it's a really simple fight. You don't have to worry about anything at all hurting you. So the second fight for the library event is these two, Anger and Strife. They're completely identical mobs and they're completely stationary, and what happens is if you focus attacks on one, he gains stacks of intensity, and if you ignore one, he gains stacks of dissipation. Intensity per stack increases their damage by 10%, and dissipation per stack decreases their damage by 10% as well. So what happens is if you ignore one, he eventually does no damage, and if you focus on one, he eventually ends up doing 100% more damage. So it's really an intensive fight, because what happens is they do a 30,000k hit on the tank constantly. Both of them cast this at the tank. I believe their threat is shared. Like if the tank builds threat on one mob, it actually builds threat for both of them, even though they don't share a health pool. Because the other ad, no matter what I did or ignored him or anything, he just focused on me the entire time. So we've got that. So what we did this fight is really overtuned in the beta right now, and it's really difficult to get through. So what we ended up doing was focusing on one until 7 stacks, and then just stopping attacking, waiting for the stack to fall off, and then attacking again. Off, on, off, on, off, on. It took a really long time. This fight lasted like 15 minutes. That's why the video sped up. And then we switch to the next mob and we do the exact same thing, except there's half the damage output because there's only one left. So I'll likely do an updated, like closer to live of Mists of Pandaria doing this fight, because right now it's just horrible. It's horribly done, and it's just difficult to get through. It's a challenging fight, that's for sure, but it's so hard that it's not that fun to do. We ended up waiting around for the healer to get his mana back, and it's dreadful to get through. So that's if you get the beta, let's hope that you don't have to fight these guys, because it's annoying. The third boss of this dungeon is Flameheart. Now she is a 3-phase fight and is really fun. I love this fight. Now her first phase is called Dragon Dance, and what happens is she does Dragon Strike. That's her first ability, which is just like a single target ability on the tank. Her second ability is Dragon Kick, which she uses immediately after her strike. That does the 30k AoE. And then she does a Dragon Wave, which shoots it says 3 in the journal, but it's actually 4 waves of fire in 4 separate directions. And that phase is actually pretty easy. Second phase is at 70% health, and that's the Jade Dragon Dance. And all her abilities gain a new effect, right? So her strike adds a 40k healing absorption on the tank. Her kick adds a knockback, and the wave leaves a trail of fire behind, but it's all the same amount of damage. Phase 3 starts at 30% health, and now at 30% health, she transforms into a Jade Serpent, and basically everything stays the same except that a new ability is added on called Jade Fire, and she shoots fireballs all over the place, and the fireballs land and leave a trail of fire themselves. So there's lots of AoE stuff to pay attention to, but it's really easy overall, and yeah, it's a really exciting fight. Last boss of this dungeon is Shaw of Doubt, and it's a 2-phase fight. So what happens here is, during phase 1, he will cast 2 spells. The first is Wither Will, which is it targets 2 random party members and does like 30,000 damage or something like that. It's not that big of a deal, really. But the second one is the really, really big killer. And what he does is he casts a magic debuff called Touch of Nothingness. It can be dispelled, but if it isn't dispelled, it does 25,000 damage per 2 seconds to the target and all his surrounding allies. So you have to stay spread out if your healer's not very good at dispelling, or very quick at dispelling. So as you can see here, this is phase 2. It happens frequently. I think it's at set time intervals because I've seen him do it at any health percentage, basically. And what happens is, they're called Figments of Doubt. Each party member that's still living gets a Figment of Doubt summoned from their body. And what happens is, the Figment of Doubt will slowly fuse with you. And if you let it completely fuse with you, it'll do 25,000 AoE damage, and it'll heal the Shaw of Doubt for 10% of his health. Now luckily, it's actually very, very easy to kill those ads before that happens. Basically, the Shaw of Doubt only holds the phase for a certain amount of time, and if he actually ends the phase before you kill the ads, that's when they'll fuse and do the damage and heal the boss. But, you know, as I said before, it's really easy to kill these guys. The whole thing about the ads, though, is they're attached to their counterpart, right? So if they've targeted you, you're screwed. The tank cannot taunt them. No matter what happens, they will not lose threat. They'll attack the same person constantly throughout. So the best thing to do is to stack together, AoE them down, or single target them down, whatever. Just stack together so everybody can help each other out, and it'll all end well. And yeah, so the boss will switch between these 2 phases constantly. And, you know, it's for the last boss, you know, that third last boss, I would prefer that boss as the last boss because it was truly a fun fight. This boss was sort of missing. I had to transition here because our healer wasn't quite getting the handle of the new discipline spec, so we wiped a few times, but the fight itself isn't really that tough. So yeah, that's the last boss.